We tend to associate high performance with youth, elite college admissions, competitive athletics, breaking records. There's this quiet assumption that those seasons belong to your 20s, maybe your 30s, and after that, excellence becomes maintenance. Today's guest completely changes that narrative. She's played and coached rugby at MIT and UCSC, in addition to making the women's national team in '89 and being drafted into the Slug Rugby Hall of Fame. She now holds multiple powerlifting world records in two different weight classes. And at 66 years old, she's preparing for Masters Nationals in a new weight class, chasing even more. At the same time, she mentors high school students through one of the most competitive processes of their lives, helping them gain admissions to top tier universities. This isn't a stay active story. This is a high performance story about female strength, longevity, coachability, pressure, and what it means to keep pursuing excellence long after most people expect you to slow down. Let's get into it. Well, thank you very much, Nancy, for joining us on our podcast this month. We're very excited for you to be here and to have our listeners just experience this conversation. We've had I know you and TC have had a lot of very good conversations. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with both of you, and I can be bi-coastal in the moment. It's very exciting.
Exactly. Okay, great. So I think we'll just start off with asking kind of a background question. So would you walk us through your athletic life? I know you played rugby at MIT, and now you have some world records with 100% raw. What through line connects kind of like your sports history?
Okay, so we were talking a little bit about calisthenics. That was like, my dad, he used to go, hey doll, can you do a push-up? And I was so eager. Yes, I can do a push-up. He's like, now he would do it, and then he would do one. He's like, okay, can you do it on your fingertips? And I would struggle with that, and then he would do a fingertip push-up. And he's like, now take away your pinky. And I
Oh,
would like struggle with that. Maybe I would pull it off. And then he would do a four-fingered push-up. He's like, now take away your ring finger. And I'd like do that and I couldn't hold the weight. Man, that's too hard. And he
how
would go,
old were you for this?
huh?
How old were you for this?
It's probably 11, 12,
Okay, all right.
and late elementary school. And he's like, he would do a three-finger push-up. He's
Wow.
like, now take away your thumbs. So remember I told you that he was 50 years older than me.
Yeah.
Um, and so he had to be 60 something, I don't know exactly, to take away his thumb and to do a two-finger push-up.
Mm. I don't know if I could do
Yeah,
that.
no, I know I can't. I used to play piano. So,
Those are strong fingers.
yeah.
Yeah. And then he would teach me different like balance games like Indian wrestling, like you can push each other like this, but not this. And I don't know, just games.
Did you have siblings? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have an older brother and an older sister.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. So your dad kind of introduced you to some like exercise.
Yes. And my sister is the one that read to me, which was pretty awesome.
Hmm.
And so I went off to school reading already and got to kindergarten. I'm like, isn't everybody supposed to be able to read everything? And they're like, we're going to test you. And so they tested me and I could read. So you go to first grade.
Oh, nice.
And so my whole academic career is 1 year younger than everybody. So I first started doing organized athletics when my friend in school, Teresa, who always was very original, she said, let's go to the track team interest meeting. I want to run track. And I only found out later that she thought she wanted to do pole vault, which, hardly any middle schoolers or high schoolers can do. This was like seventh grade. I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I'll go with you. And we really liked the whole, This was pre-Title IX, the whole girls can do anything thing.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so she was kind of a leader like that,
Mhm.
where she came up with the ideas and would like nudge me and like, will you do it with me? And I would kind of make it happen for us.
Great. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so
Dynamic
we went to
duo.
the interest meeting and they're like, come at this time and get your sweats and practice is starts tomorrow right after school. And we were like, okay. So we show up at practice. We're like, are the boys gonna not like this? But of course the boys loved it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so actually the game was boys, like so they're like we were like seventh graders. I was 11. They were up to like maybe 12, 13 because it was like seventh and eighth grade junior high team.
Yeah.
And they would rather die than have us run faster than them.
Ah, yes.
Okay, so I remember running in practice, like running at the same time, pretending that I wasn't tired, so I'd be trying to stay with this pack of boys, but like kind of keep my breathing even and look relaxed and like, be chill. And that was like really good training to try to do that.
Yeah.
And so eventually we kind of kept with it. And eventually other girls joined. We talked it up to our friends. And then they couldn't really, I don't know if the school was pleased with what was going on, but they definitely couldn't kick us out. Um,
Uh,
so the girls' portion of the boys' track team grew and grew and grew.
Were you
Um,
the first two to start it, or you're just
we were the first two, me and Teresa.
okay? All right. I love this.
Yeah. So came around to the first meet and they didn't know what to do with us. And they put me in triple jump. And I'm like, how do you do triple jump? And I like practiced twice. And then I did my 3 jumps for the meet. And I placed third.
Wow.
Yeah, that was super duper.
What is triple jump?
Um, you go fast, starts out like long jump. You have a board. You jump on that. You say you jump from your right foot. You land on your right foot. And then you land on your left foot. And then you jump as far as you can. Like one point it was called hop, skip, and jump.
Oh, interesting.
So it turns out lots of people couldn't do that legally. It's like when Matt, when he was 5 years old, he was like, I want to learn to swim butterfly. Well, it turns out that nobody in the under 6-year-old category can legally swim butterfly. So he would win first place every meet just for no figuring out how to do it.
Okay, so your kids took after you.
A little bit. Well, actually, they ran high school track.
Okay.
Matt is very, very coordinated, but he didn't do any sport. Um, and I think David ran track because the smart kids ran track.
Okay.
And Matt, when I told him he had to do a high school sport, he did not look pleased. And I told him, yes, you have to do a high school sport because the body you build now is the body you're going to have for the whole rest of your life. So you
Mhm.
have to do this. This is important.
Yeah.
What kind of sport do you like, Matt? He's like, I want to do a sport where nobody touches me. So we found this bizarre, Mark and I. That was good for a laugh because we met playing rugby.
Okay.
I'm this child that wants nobody to touch him.
That's funny.
So what did he end up doing?
He ended up running cross
Okay.
country, and I think he just ran cross country.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I think David did winter track and spring track, but not cross country. So I let him off the hook with, cross country, that seems like enough. And it turns out he went off to college and then got a job and like runs for fun. How weird is that?
There you
Yeah.
go. See?
Oh, the other thing we signed him up for this is another thing I did. I didn't put it on the list. We signed him up for a fencing class when he was in about 6th grade. And so that was like an exception to the nobody touching me thing. But
Oh,
I thought he would really like it because it's really mental.
okay.
It's a whole system of structured movements.
For
So
sure.
somebody attacks, and then you have what like you can do one of two different movements as a parry, and then you will repost, reattack, and there's only so many attacks you can do after a parry, and then they will do something that matches what you did. They'll make a choice, and it's like this whole series of moves. It's like chess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It develops based on how the first attack came about.
And the
Interesting.
goal is to have someone not be able to touch you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
perfect.
Okay, great. And did you say you did fencing as well?
I did. I when I was in graduate school, I took a PE class in fencing and I really, really liked it. And so they had a fencing club. They did not distinguish between staff or graduate students or undergraduates. And I just went to the fencing club and started fencing. And the guy, the master fencer in charge said, "Oh, I thought you were an undergraduate and you were doing really well for an undergraduate."
Great.
Excellent. The physical chess.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was interesting. He was a good coach too. This is fun. We had like these like structured drills, and then if we were doing well, we got to play something called tribal warfare, where there was a center line down the gym, and you got separated into two teams, and then you had to stay on your side of the line, but you could attack and fence with anybody on the other side of the line without going over the line. So the battle line was drawn, and the two teams are there all reaching across.
Oh, that sounds great. Sounds like a
Oh,
lot of fun.
Yes.
and tell us about rugby at MIT. How'd you get into that?
How did I get into that?
Well,
Oh,
you play
so
tennis as well too.
what's
So
that?
yeah, you played tennis as well at MIT, right?
I did. The first thing I played at MIT was I walked onto the tennis team, and I had never had any tennis instruction. But I remember my dad watching tennis on TV, and Chris Everett was playing. He was like, "You could play as well as those girls." And he took me out and he like hit balls to me, and I had to hit him back here and there. That was all the instruction I ever got. Was my dad like taking me out and having fun. And
Oh,
then I used to play with my brother who used to just stomp me. He's 6 years older than me. And usually it was like a set was like could win like 6-2, 6-3, 6-1. And the only thing I developed out of that was a really hard serve. Occasionally I could serve hard enough that he couldn't return it. And that was
oh.
so gratifying. So I just kept working on that. So I went out for the tennis team and walked on, and but for the speed I had developed running track, I didn't have a chance because I didn't hit it very well, except for I could surf hard, but I could run down almost anything. So they could hit it to this side of the court, and I would like run over and desperately return it, and then they'd hit it to the other corner of the court, and I'd run over there and desperately just barely return it, and they would just like wear me out. The girls that knew how to do something.
Hey.
And, yeah, so I played a couple matches with them. And then I remember, tennis is a brutal sport. It's like you can be thinking, I don't have to play well. I just have to make you play worse than me.
Yeah, which is what they were doing, right? They're like you
Yeah.
said, they're going back and forth.
Yeah. So I finished with one practice one day, and I was really discouraged by how hard it was for me. Like now I think I've had some lessons and stuff. Now I'm thinking somebody should have told me this and this and this, but I didn't know. So I finished with tennis practice, all frustrated, and I'm like, did what I usually did with frustration is I go for a run. So I was running around Briggs Field at MIT, and I saw these people like chasing each other around and knocking each other down. I'm like, that looks like fun. So I came over and I said, "What you doing? Can I play?" And they said, "Sure, you can play." So I'm like, "Well, what do I do?" And they said, like, "You be on that team. And when you get the ball, you're supposed to take the ball and run over the end line and then touch it down." I'm like, "Oh, fun." And like, people are going to be trying to tackle you. And when the other side gets the ball, you tackle them, And once you get tackled, you have to release the ball, and then it's still in play. Um, so I got like, 3 instructions, but only the first one took. I think every time somebody threw me the ball, I ran down over the end line and touched it down.
Oh, wow. It's that track.
It was the track. Well, no, it was the backyard football, I think. Because
Okay, yeah.
when I was young, I had to take piano lessons and I had to practice like, my hour a day. And the piano, unfortunately, was right next to the window where I could see the neighborhood kids playing football. And I was
Okay.
like there, like practicing my stuff and like looking out the window, going, "Oh man, I want to be out there." So I was filled with longing for, going and playing football, which was more fun than practicing piano, and highlighted my childhood.
You agree?
And yeah, so I like that. I was ready, primed to play contact sport. And they're like, "Oh, you can stay. What's your phone number?" But it turns out that I didn't even remember that somebody remembered me from, they put up a poster for, they're trying to form the rugby team and poster for a practice over January. And at MIT, the January is reserved for these short courses. It's called Independent Activities Period. And it was like show up at the cage. The cage is where you basically have room to play sports. It takes up some room indoors. And I had over Christmas break, I'd had a surgery on one of my fingers that they thought had like a bone cyst. They're like, we're all worried that she has bone cancer. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But they insist we're going to do this surgery. So I had a cast on my arm. And so I show up to this rugby practice with a cast on my arm. And they have all the training part of it, and I run with them and I do whatever. And we got to the push-ups, and thanks to my dad, I was doing the one arm push-ups when everybody else had two
Okay.
arms, holding up my cast. And so there were some people that remembered that. I didn't remember that as a rugby practice. I just, January is the time when you show up for random things and try them out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that describes a lot of college, trying random things and
Yeah.
seeing how it works out. So some people remember me. They made sure I didn't go away. And I started, just playing with them. That was in 1977. Club rugby in the Boston area had started in 1976. I think this was all an outgrowth over in 1974, Title IX came into effect. And we went from being a girls and boys track team to splitting off, and the girls track team competed against other girls track teams that had started in the area, other high schools. And we did that for 2 years. Um, and so then this was all the things, starting up women's teams and all sorts of sports. So women's rugby had just started in the Boston area. And so it was like growing like crazy at the New England area colleges. And so MIT had its team. So yeah, I remember the first time we played against the club side, there were college teams and then there were club sides. So club sides were people that had already graduated from various colleges and were generally older and bigger and more solid. So I remember the first time we played against Boston Rugby Club. It was a little harder to go around people, and I got run over a number of times. That was new to me. That was less fun.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, that's funny.
So that was, yeah, and we kept playing, and it was good. So there was also a men's team, and Mark was the captain of the men's team.
Oh, okay. Mark's your husband.
Yes, he is.
Mm.
And
So
that
you
was
got,
like
yeah,
that
well,
one. I want that one.
yeah,
The captain.
yeah. So you met while you were playing at MIT, right, for your undergrad. And then so you had sent me the Slug Rugby Hall of Fame, where it talks about your time getting your PhD out at University of, what is it? Yeah, University of California, Santa Cruz. Is
Yes.
that's correct?
Yes.
So yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit because I feel like there's a lot of information in there that I mean it embodies you as an athlete, right? And then as a coach and a mentor, and I feel like all of that translates to kind of how our training has progressed since you've been with us too.
So in some sense, I kind of grew up playing rugby.
So
So I played with MIT and they had a men's team and a women's team, and we certainly fraternized. So part of playing rugby is the rugby culture where you have a drink up after your games. So you get together and you drink beer and you sing traditional songs, and then you just talk rugby, talk strategy, talk about how the game went, complain about the referee.
Yeah.
Or the rugby saying is the forwards complain about the referee. So the backs complain about the forwards and the forwards complain about the referee. So the backs are the ones that are scoring the points, running the ball. And the forwards are the ones that get there when a tackle is made and the ball has been released on the ground. The forwards get there to reestablish possession. So that's why the backs are complaining about the forwards because the backs like get the ball and we'll score
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
And there's lots of rules that are unfamiliar to Americans that surround what to do with the ball when you got this mass of people around it, like who you can do what to or where you can stand. It's really easy to be offsides.
Okay. Okay.
So that's why the forwards complain about the referee.
What position did you play?
I played different positions. I started out playing center. So I wish I had a nice blackboard for you. So I do have a whiteboard, but I won't do that. I won't do that to you. So there's a mass of forwards here, and they get the ball. The ball pops out here behind them, and the person that picks it up is the scrum half. The scrum half throws it to the fly half. The fly half is kind of like quarterback. The fly half calls the plays. So scrum half throws it to the fly half. Fly half is in charge of these cats over here, the backs, who won't do what they're told, and everybody denigrates them because all they do is run with the ball. So it goes to the fly half, and then it goes to the inside center, and it goes to the outside center, and then it goes to the wing.
Okay.
Okay, so when I joined the team, there were not that many people that could throw very good passes. So they wanted to minimize the number of passes before it got to me. So I was not the scrum half, not the fly half. I was the inside center. So I was 2 passes away from when we got possession of the ball.
Okay. Okay.
And so if you're playing on a good team, usually it's the centers that are the masters of deception. So they're the ones that are running certain patterns and then making passes like behind them and, basically handoffs or kicking it or whatever. Okay, so as we got better and those plays were working, as you get better, also the opposing centers are more competent at tackling. Usually the centers are like, fire plugs. They're really tough. Okay, so, you can't really run over them unless they're much smaller than you, which was true in my case when we went against Boston Rugby Club.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to put on a few pounds there. So I got moved from inside center to outside center to give me room to run and then to wing. And so that was with MIT. I played either outside center or wing. So there's like all this whole string of backs from the scrum, whole string of backs out here. And you're thinking, who's over here? Well, yeah, that's an opportunity, right? So a lot of times that scrum is near the sidelines because the reason why you're having a scrum is because there was a line out, the ball went out of bounds, and then there's 2 lines form up, and there's basically the team that's supposed to get possession of the ball, the team that did not kick it out of bounds, gets to throw it in. And then usually possession gets contested there, and you're very close to the sideline. So there's really no reason to stack up a whole bunch of backs in that small space.
Right.
But
And
if you're playing wing, a lot of times you see some opportunity on that called the weak side, on the weak side. So I became very good friends with the scrum half, and I would also often be calling out to her what I saw in terms of opportunities to go weak or to go strong. So we developed really good communication.
okay, that's great.
She was one of these amazing players who is really, really smart, MIT graduate student. So she had played basketball at University of Maryland. So she had also won the Maryland State Science Fair every year of high school, and then went and got a scholarship to University of Maryland and played basketball for them. And I'm sure was an amazing playmaker. And then went to MIT for graduate school, and then went off and became a Harvard professor and got tenure at Harvard. Like that's an amazing thing.
Great.
So my would have heard about becoming a professor at Harvard to get tenure. They send letters out to everybody that's prominent in your field, and they don't ask how good is your work. They ask who is the best in the world in this field, and if the answers don't come back with your name on them, then you don't get tenure.
Wow. Okay.
But she
Yeah.
was like, I'm coming up for tenure, but it's okay. Nobody does what I do.
There
So
you
she
go.
was in class by herself.
Wow.
So you played with her at MIT, you said, during undergrad?
Yes. And
Did
then she I was graduating. She went off to play for the Beantown Rugby Club. And so when I was a senior, I'm hearing a lot from the Boston Rugby Club and the Beantown Rugby Club about how you should come play for them. So I went and played for Beantown with my friend Connie and with some other amazing athletes. So that year they had pulled a real coup. They had the year I was a senior, they had gone to the national tournament and they had gotten basically last place. They got their butts kicked because the New England level of competition wasn't like wasn't like the California standards of fitness and speed and toughness. So, but at that tournament, they managed to recruit about a third of the Florida State women's rugby club. And so there was a big influx of talent. Okay, so that was fun. So I was playing with this team that was like really hot. And we had coaching us Kevin O'Brien, who eventually he's in the US Rugby Hall of Fame now as a like best coach ever. Coached the Harvard, MIT teams to national championships. The New England select side, he coached the women's national team to the first women's World Cup, and they won. He just like coached so many teams, like an amazing coach. I was like, there's so much to learn here. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So I went and played for Beantown, and I'm playing under Kevin O'Brien, but also at that point, then I'm coaching the MIT team because I went to a bunch of coaching clinics, and besides, I have this great role model in front of me. I'm like, oh, I want to give back to my team. So like, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm training with Beantown, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm running MIT practices.
I love that.
Yeah.
And in this article too, that you are part of the U.S. women's national team.
There was not a national team at that point.
Yes, later.
Oh, okay, that's later.
Yeah, so I had this inspiring experience of coaching and being coached and really experiencing teamwork. So if you come up through track, right? It's an individual sport, so it's all about you. Team sports are not all about you, I found out. So the beauty of team sports is like using a good team will use all of your talents to their benefit.
Sure.
And a good team player will say, yes, take me.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
So-
I think that's actually, I think that can be beneficial even in individual sports because, like you said, you have to have coaches and mentors. And when you can learn how to identify strengths and weaknesses, that I think that makes you more efficient at developing those weaknesses into certain strengths, right? And then also utilizing those strengths to your advantage during competition too. So, but anyway, yeah, we're back to we graduated MIT. You are coaching MIT. You're playing Beantown.
Yes, and learning how to be compliant and at the service of my team.
Yeah. Yeah, which being a coach, I mean, that's even another level, right? Because that's even more removed because you're just helping other people to do well. So yeah, it's which is another, I mean, it's a very different form of gratification, but I also think that it is very gratifying in itself to help other people reach their potential.
Mhm.
Yes. My favorite experience as a coach is to take a bunch of sort of middling athletes and have them together to play like well above their abilities. Like what
Yeah,
you never thought you could put together from that level of athlete, but to have
yeah,
a team that's like so tight that it's like really performing at
yeah.
its best.
Which is
Everybody
basically
gets the experience of like playing better than they ever would have thought possible. Right.
exactly. And that's what happens when you can lean on other people's strengths, to fill in your weaknesses. And when you don't have the ego where it has to be all me, right? Which is kind of what like Michael Jordan and the Bulls did, right? I mean, yeah, he was a phenomenal player, but through his leadership, everyone else was able to capitalize on their strengths as
Right.
well. And yeah, it just
So
created,
building on this rugby background, after we had kids, we started playing a lot of recreational league soccer and a ton of pickup soccer. And so there's the soccer midfielder that just makes everybody around him better. And
yeah,
everybody likes playing on a team like that. But then there's this people that are so good at that and making, the one team flow that like everybody wants to be their opponent too. It's
sure.
enjoyable not just to play for that team, but to play against that team because it's just beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So,
then I was coaching, playing, coaching, and we went to the nationals and we got into the finals and we like lost by a point. Oh, it was heart crushing.
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
And then we decided we were gonna dig down and get better. And we went back to nationals the next year. And in our first game, our coach is like, stop scoring so much. You're going to wear yourselves out. We're like, we can't help it.
yeah, that's the name of the
Yep.
game.
But so I had, when I started out for Beantown, they're like, we're putting you at outside center. You're an outside center. And then I was like, that's a great position. And occasionally, like there's this influx of talent and there's competition for every position. Occasionally, I get put at wing, which is considerably more straightforward. That's more back to the get the ball and run over the goal line. Not too complicated. But I had an ambition to play fullback
Okay,
because I had this vision of fullback of how it should be played, which came from watching the Barbarians, which is a Great Britain select side, and they had like this brilliant fullback for years. They would just like make these plays happen. And what I got from watching him was that every possession, even when you're in a defensive position, every possession is an opportunity to attack.
sure.
Right? So you want the opposition to be like drooling and thinking they're going to crush you, and then there you go.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
So I not only wanted to play like that, I wanted to develop a team where the wings were so in tune with that style of play and the outside center that it was like one little subset of the team that was like always on the attack, always controlling the space. So finally, I begged and begged. I begged and begged the coach and the selection committee. I want to play fullback. I want to play fullback. And so finally, I got my chance to play fullback and made my dreams come true.
Excellent.
Oh, I love it.
Okay,
So
so
that was still the East Coast, right? That was still Beantown?
that was still Beantown, yes.
Okay.
So then I got into graduate school and got on a really interesting project doing basically exploration geophysics in Indonesia. And I'm like, oh, I want to go do that. And so I went and watched the UC Santa Cruz women's rugby team. And I was like, oh, that's too bad, man. I would have to coach them if I were going to play for them. Somebody's got to teach these gals, how to play like a team. So
Sure. Yeah, 'cause
finally,
they're
my
still pretty
second
good.
year there, I started coaching them and playing for them at the same
Oh,
time. And I did that for a couple of years. And that was very time consuming. It was like I probably spent 30 hours a week just thinking about them, how to coach them and designing practices. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, it's like any college athlete, you got all your classes and then you have a full-time job on top of it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I finally stopped playing for them. So I was in a game in which another player on the other team broke her leg by colliding with my leg.
Oh, wow.
It was like a really gross freak accident
Yeah.
because I could basically kind of feel her lower leg wrapping around my shin.
Oof.
Okay.
So I felt really bad about that. And I didn't play for quite a while. I was like traumatized. Well, she was traumatized too,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
like being the cause of that. So,
Yeah.
um, so I took a couple years off. And what was I doing? Finishing my PhD. Oh, that
Sure.
was interesting. So I was like, here I am in my fourth year. When am I going to get this thing done? And I thought, I'm just going to work as hard as I can, like every day, and work weekends too, and I'll be done in like 3 months. So that's what I did. I worked all the
Oh,
time. I worked as hard as I could. And like 12 months later, I finished. So it
Wow.
took about 4 times as long as I estimated.
Chris makes fun of me for that. She's like, anytime you say it's going to take this amount of time, I always think twice as much as that. And usually that's a pretty safe estimation.
Yeah. When you're writing anything, when you think you're 90% done, you're like 10% done.
Yeah. Hmm.
When you think you are done, you have like 10% more to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least. Yeah. That's funny. So
But
yeah.
that was the first time I'd be like, I'm going to work really, really hard. I'm going to work late nights every night. I'm going to go in on the weekends. I'm going to do everything I can do. And, well, got it moving, but
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Let's back up. That wasn't the first time you said I'm going to work really, really hard. You just were spreading your efforts across other interests before that,
that's
which
right. I stopped coaching and I stopped
yeah,
playing and I just knuckled down on finishing this research. But
exactly.
at the same time I was trying to finish a thesis, I was writing a research proposal to get funded by National Science Foundation. And also I was writing fellowship applications and I got a post-grad fellowship to Columbia University.
Awesome.
So right
Wow.
about the time I finished. So it was all good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So how did you end up on the women's national team?
Okay. So I think I told you part of the story. So we were going up to, there was a, an while I was like taking a breath and like putting my head down and finishing my science work, there was a national team that was organized. And I didn't, like, people were like bugging me, like, you need to go to these tryouts. You need to go to these tryouts. Why didn't you show up for making the Pacific Coast team? I'm like, oh, I'm just like working really hard. And they're like, Flake. So they went ahead and formed a team, and they were playing U.S. versus Canada in Saranac Lake. Every summer, there's a big rugby tournament in Saranac Lake. So Mark and I were going up there just because for fun to watch rugby, and we were watching this game, and they were like really good. This woman that I used to play against, and she had started out playing for Stanford. She had like was a back, and she was a center and used to be kind of a hefty center, but lost like 30 pounds and then gained so much speed. And she was like the star of the show. So that was really impressive. So they played really impressively, right? So I'm watching this game. And I say to Mark, I want to do this. And unbeknownst to me, behind me is the members of the local team that I would have to join to then qualify to try out for the regional teams and then eventually the national team. So they overheard me and they're like, who is this? What a jerk. Can you imagine some randos like, watching a NBA game and going, I want to play that game.
Yeah.
It's 5'6", and you're like, no, that's not happening, darling. Okay, so I declared my intentions, and then I'm like, I have to go play some rugby with a team. Turns out these people that I didn't know but had overheard me. And I show up and they're like, okay, whatever. And, they were nice enough to me. It was fun playing on that team. Um, and then I'm like, oh, I really want to make this team. So I got to start working out. So I figured as a rough framework that if I had 5 days a week where I had 2 training sessions per day and 1 day a week, one light day where I only did one training session and 1 day a week off, that would probably, do it. And I kind of very loosely structured it, being that training could be running, it could be weights, it could be an aerobics class, it could be a rugby practice. I sort of mixed and matched everything, and I just piled it all up. And eventually, they chose an East Coast team, which I made. And then the East Coast went off to play the West Coast, the Midwest, and the South. Except the Midwest and the South were never really contenders. It's really the East Coast team and the West Coast team. The West Coast team, I knew almost everybody on it pretty well. So off we go to play. And I got to be fullback on this East Coast team because I had this vision of how fullback and the outer back should play together. And there was just one play that really made my selection. So there was a situation where so the wings had to know that we're covering for each other all the time. We're playing like a zone defense, forming a triangle. So if I have to drop back at fullback, one wing drops back to be like parallel with me. And the wing that's on that side might drop back just behind. So anyhow, at one point in the game, they put up a high kick just for me, and I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it, and of course, I'm going to catch it, and then I'm going to get piled on by everybody. So the trick I had been working on is you stand and you wait, looking up about 2 yards off of where the ball is actually going to come down, and at the last minute you step sideways twice, and you catch the ball. So that's what I did. I catch the ball, look up. They're like in my face. And I make a long pass, like a scrum half, like a long spiral pass across the field, like 30 yards to my other wing, who's waiting like just behind, the line of scrimmage there. So she gets a legal pass, and she has the entire field in front of her open to run into.
Yeah.
So she gets it, takes off, and me and the wing who's right backing me up, we go and we join up with her. A couple passes here, there, and score. So we took a dire situation and broke it wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
crowd went wild.
Yeah. That's
So that was a
great.
good moment.
Love it.
Yeah. So the rest of the time that before I went off to California, and was still at MIT, after I graduated, and I was playing for the club side, but coming back and coaching MIT, I was working at MIT, and then I could play on any clubs that MIT had. And somebody started up a women's ice hockey team. And this was a revelation because I had played intramural ice hockey with my dorm floor when I was an undergrad. And, all these women show up for the first practice and nobody knows what to do. And coach is like, who can skate backwards? And 2 women raise their hands, and it's like, you two, you're the defense. Because nobody else could skate backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you an ice hockey fan?
Man, I've been to a couple games. It's a very interesting sport. I grew up playing lacrosse, so it's like kind of similar, but I was never a great skater.
We have a client who plays on a women's ice hockey team.
Oh yeah, John, yeah.
So the thing I loved about it was you get shoulder pads and you get padded pants, you got padded gloves and forearm pads, elbow pads, and the skates are very protective. You got knee pads. And I'm like, so I get out there, I'm trying to get the puck with my stick and like lose control of where I'm going, bam, run into the boards, and I'm like, fall backwards, and I'm like, that's hilarious. That didn't hurt at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think, oh, there's no reason to ever slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, full throttle, which is exactly your MO. I mean, like, listening to like how you've approached sports and academics. I mean, everything is just I don't want to say just more because it's not just arbitrarily more, but I feel like you like challenging yourself, which I've also often said that I think that a large, I guess, cause of anxiety and depression is just a lack of sense of accomplishment, from people not being comfortable pushing themselves or, anything along those lines. And I think that, looking for these challenges in life, I think it's really important because it helps you grow as a person.
Right. Just say yes to new situations.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to
And
do
what could
that.
happen?
Yeah, that's what life is for. I mean, just trying stuff and seeing what happens. And if you like it, keep doing it. If you don't like it, don't do it again.
Yeah.
So,
So I did tell you about my trouble with shooting on the goal, which was when I first started playing and I realized there was no reason to slow down ever. Whenever I would shoot on goal, I get so excited, I'd fall down and I'm like already going too fast and I'd slide into the goal, take the goalkeeper out and like it was just like, it would all explode like a yard sale.
yeah.
So
Okay, maybe.
and people would get mad at me. The other team would get really mad at me.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's
then, so I was like probably in the penalty box more than anybody on the team. So or like our friends and boyfriends would come, and whenever I got sent to the penalty box, they'd be like cheering and hooting and hollering, and yeah, the real crowd pleaser. But I would get displeasure from the other team. And then like people would, try to check me or run into me or whatever. And, it's cool. And like they try to check me and they fall down. And people are like, what'd you do to her? I was like, I didn't do anything. I just maintained my body position.
yeah. Yeah. Which is probably a crossover from rugby, right? I mean, you got to be pretty resilient. Yeah, that's great. So basically, I mean, you spent your teenage years and it sounds like most of your 20s training and competing. Um, when did you start powerlifting? Because I know you've been training with us for about 2 years now, right? Just right around 2 years. Um, so yeah, when did you start? When did you start to transition that athletic career into more like a resistance training, powerlifting career?
Well, so when I was on the high school track team, we were let into the high school weight room. And so I was just doing what the boys were doing, like lifting things.
Yeah, yeah, and you liked it.
Yes, I liked it.
Perfect.
So what I really liked is we didn't like have a leg press machine or anything. The way we did leg presses, we had something like a sort of like a Smith machine. We had a bar and it had, weights that you could attach to
Wow.
it. It only had like 300 pounds. So I'm there, I'm doing it one day, I'm happy. And one of the boys is, I bet you can't do the whole stack. And I'm like, I bet you I can. And so I do the whole stack and it's like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." And it's like, I can do more than that. Why don't you get up and stand on the bar? And then one of the distance runners is like, okay, I'll do it. So I could do the whole stack, it turns out, and all the distance runners.
Wow.
Oh, that's funny.
That's great.
Yes.
So, okay, so what has right now you have world records in two different weight classes. What has training in later stages of life, like how has that differed from training in your teen years, your 20s, your 30s?
Well, have I ever asked you to stand on the machine to make it more interesting?
Not yet, but but I'm not going to say that it's never going to
I'm
happen.
anticipating it
Yeah.
now.
So because you do still push yourself, right? I'll give you a program and you say, "Oh, well, I did that and I felt like I didn't do enough, so I, threw in these and these and these and these and these." So you're still definitely in the pushing mentality for sure. And you do cycling, you do hiking, you like to walk, you like to run. You still love to stay active and do all of these things.
Right, but I don't know, like the way you talk about pushing, it's like, people go is like, oh, I really pushed myself. Like I'd basically crawl out of the gym. I'm not so interested in that. I'm not sure I was ever interested in that. It always went more like, I'd coach a rugby practice and then I'd go to the weight room and visit all my favorite machines and weights and visit all my friends in the weight room and then be ready to go out for a run afterwards because it just feels good and loosens me up and be running past like an ultimate frisbee game and say, "Hey, you need any more players?" And jump in and play ultimate frisbee for an hour and then go, "Oh, I'm not done with my run. Well, I'll finish the loop."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how an afternoon would go. Like
Hmm.
one thing leads to another.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like that's you know, it sounds like there's just a higher emphasis on stress mitigation, right? But I also think that the older we get, the more things that we have in our brain. And we coach all of our athletes that your body sees all stress the same, right? And when we are unable to adequately recover from certain stressors, then our body can't improve as much as we want it to improve. So we might pull back in certain areas so that we can continue to make progress in all the areas that we want to make progress in without sacrificing quality of life or family life or, relationships with your kids, your husband.
But, a lot of times exercise is just a stress reliever.
Yeah, yes. Often, I mean, very, very often, I would say. So, and that's another thing we tell people is like training, working out is almost the easy part, right? That's the part that most people enjoy. It's all of the other like putting all of the pieces into place that, people either don't want to be bothered with, but then they end up plateauing, then they end up not progressing the way they want to, or they end up injuring themselves. So yeah, I think, man, it definitely is tough and it's a lot to think about, especially when we have all these other things to think about in life. But I feel like you handle it very well, right? Like you are still a mom, you're still a wife, you still have a career, and you are still continuing to make progress in all these lifts. Um, so I know that we have Masters Nationals coming up. Do you want to talk a little bit about your goals for Masters Nationals? Because I know, well, I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, so
This is
my overall plan. So the first so I started out in this gym and working with my friend had been working with a trainer, and then she felt something was bothering her and she wanted to quit for a while. And she's like, "Would you take my slot with him?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great. I pay somebody, but they're just there waiting for me and have a workout in mind. And I can show up with my brain empty and just do what he tells me to do, and everybody's happy."
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that seemed very easy. And so then I noticed a lot of people in the gym were either training for powerlifting or bodybuilding, and it's like cool for them. And it's like, you would not get me but on a stage for bodybuilding, like zero interest. And then I thought, well, okay, so I see this website and I see there's these different competitions, and I will come up with a plan, like I would come up with a plan for one of my students who was interested in something. And I would say, like, what can you do? And it's like, oh, well, I could go see one. And I'm like, that's just weird to go, be a voyeur. I'll have to enter, and then I'll just do like, if it's nothing, then I do nothing. But I'll go with zero expectations and I'll see what I think about it. And then if I want to go back, I'll go back with very, very low expectations, stuff I'm sure I can do. And then if that point, if I want to compete, then I'll compete. It was basically a see what happens approach. And so I went to the Outer Banks tournament competition, and weighed in. And Gene Barry's like, "Oh, you know what? There's nobody in your category. There's no records in your category." I'm like, "What kind of organization is this? Like nobody's even shown up to compete. Somebody my age and size." He's like, "All you got to do is like move the bar, and you have a state record. All you gotta do is a legal lift and it's a state record in
Sure,
all the
sure.
events." I'm like, okay, that was kind of in line with my plan. So I did that and that was fun. And it was just a good experience. People are very nice.
Yeah.
And Mark had a good time too. So I'm like, I'm thinking about doing that again. He's like, oh, well, that was like a good thing for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
definitely.
Okay, so then I went to a competition in Woodstock, Virginia, and they were super nice too. And tried to do more closer to what my max was. Um, so in both these competitions, I got DQ'd on something, and I was like, why isn't this guy I'm training with? I told him I was going to a competition. Why isn't he at least telling me how to do things legally? Like I was just watching what people are doing, and just trying to do the same thing. And no, so I felt unprepared. But I liked it. So then
Yeah.
I signed up for so then I looked at the record book to see that there really weren't any records at the Outer Banks competition. And there weren't. There I was for state of Virginia. There we go. My meager attempts were the best that anybody had come and done officially. And I realized there were all sorts of categories like that for older women. I'm like, what a sad thing. Like nobody's even showing up. You can just walk away with your first place little trophy. I felt like a kid on a soccer team. Here's your trophy. You showed up and did something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
That
I could do the service of finding all these holes in the record books and like just filling them.
yeah,
So this
which
is just me being a good team player.
yeah, well, it gives someone else something to aspire to, right? And it kind of proves I mean, the resiliency of Nancy Breen as an athlete, right? Because you're up there doing things that not a lot of other people in your demographic are willing to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I tell my friends, I'm like, you should do this too. You should, find, something in your age group and find some weight class that you could get to and that you could set a record in. It's super fun. And they're like, oh, I could never do what you do.
To which you respond,
I'm like, of course you can. But this is what happened to me on my 50th birthday. I wanted to have a 50th birthday party where everybody comes and they ride bikes 50 miles with me. And when you finish your 50 miles, then you can have cake.
yeah, good luck.
Was it a
And
lonely
I could
birthday?
not talk anybody into this. I had all these women's groups, like a book club and then a dinner club, and I couldn't get a single person from either of those groups to join me in this. And finally, Mark felt bad about me being pathetic and begging everybody to come play with me. And he put together a little bike tour just for the two of us. It was they had just opened the Great Allegheny Passage bike trail, which goes from Pittsburgh down to the C&O Canal Trail. And then you can do it continuously and come all the way to Washington. And so he put together a bike tour for the two of us, staying at like bed and breakfasts. And so
Oh.
we drove up there and we dropped off changes of clothes at each of these bed and breakfasts and got on our bikes and rode to the first one and got fed and got a shower and slept in the night and changed into our clean cycling clothes and then went off to the next bed and breakfast. We did that for like 5 nights. So we
Oh,
had two legs out on the Great Allegheny Trail, and then we decided to do an independent loop on roads at the end and then retrace our steps. So one of
Oh.
my most interesting memories from bike touring came from that loop trail that we did at the end. We're riding along through the countryside on these, farm roads. There's like no traffic. It's just heaven, but we don't really know where we are. So at some point I'm like, Mark, don't you think we should check the map? Like I would like someplace to fill up my water bottle.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's like just stop and step off here. And so we're puzzling over our navigation, looking at our phones. And then I see a little head poke out from behind the side of the barn. A kid with a little straw hat on, his overalls. I see him poking out. He's curious about these people in spandex. He doesn't see that very often on his little country road. So he comes out, he's brave. He comes out, he walks down, it was like a lawn or a field. He walks down the field a little bit, and he plops himself down in the grass, and he's just sitting there watching us. And then I see another head peeking out from around the barn. And then they're like little Amish kids with their hats and their overalls, and they have like matching outfits. It's so cute. Finally, there's 5 of them all sitting in a row just watching us. We were the entertainment.
Oh man, yeah. Which I can imagine. I mean, if they're, living out in the country, you probably, like you said, that you don't see that very much. You probably don't see a lot of anything that's out of the ordinary. So
Right. So they're probably talking about it over dinner that night.
yeah, oh,
Their
100%.
parents are like, stop making things up.
Exactly, yeah.
You sure it wasn't just a tractor going by?
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, that was a good trip.
Oh, that's great.
But
So
it's hard to get random people to come out and play with you.
yes, and you know what? I almost think that that's kind of indoctrinated into people that you have to kind of slow down the older you get. But man, I feel like one of the biggest things I tell people is that the human body is amazing. It's amazingly adaptive, and whatever you put it through is what it's going to adapt through. And if you put it through sitting at a desk all day, every day, then that's what it's going to say. Okay, this is all we need to do. And we're energy conservationists, and we're going to try to, lower all of our body processes and muscle activations in order to compensate for that sitting at a desk all day. Whereas when you stay active, like you have throughout your life, I mean, you're still out there setting records, and we're still out there increasing your lifts. So, yeah, I think that's a very important like talking point, right? Which one of our last questions was, what do people misunderstand about aging, especially aging women who still want to compete at a high level? So I kind of want to jump to that because we're there right now. So what would you say in answer to that question?
What was the question? Say it again.
What do people misunderstand about aging, especially aging women who want to continue to compete and continue to do things, not even just compete, but just to perform and maybe not even at a high level, who just want to continue to do things with their life.
Right. So I think there could be more opportunities. I'm a aficionado of the Ninja Warrior competitions. I love watching those. I just love it. And I'm like, why aren't there those that start at an easy level?
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, if you want to try something new, you kind of need that entry level. Because when a lot of people, I think, look at those high level things and they say, "Oh man, that looks like way too hard for me."
I
Like,
just can't
fun,
imagine
but
going from where they're at to that level.
exactly, yeah, and like the in between there is confusing.
So we could set up the world to be so much more encouraging toward that.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree.
Just allow for more low level play.
Yeah. So yeah, I think
Good
that's
point.
yeah, exactly. Because not everything has to be all or nothing either, right? Like with your powerlifting training, we still want you to be able to go on long bike rides. We still want you to be able to go on hikes. We still want you to be able to go hang out with your kids. We still want you to be able to do all these other things that probably don't have direct carryover into powerlifting. Whereas like, the modern society and especially social media says like, if you're not living, breathing, sleeping this sport alone, then you can't do well, which I feel like is kind of a misnomer. Yeah, I guess if you want to be number one in the world, that's probably necessary, but I feel like that turns off a lot of people from pursuing various aspirations throughout their life. And kind of like we talked on earlier, it's like that's what life is about, is trying new
Yeah,
things.
so there's so many women that like the idea of wanting you to be number one in the world would just be a big turnoff for them, like way too competitive. Like, why don't we have more team sports
Yeah.
available?
I've noticed that I feel like a lot of women athletes enjoy the camaraderie, and like the guys are kind of ego driven and they want to be like the alpha male, and the women are looking for like that community and that camaraderie. We definitely learned that a lot through like these strong lifting events and
Yes.
working with Brett Contreras. Like he works mainly with women, and I feel like the draw to that is the community.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. So,
so
I mentioned working with Kevin O'Brien as a rugby coach. The other rugby coach that was influential was Frank Bover, and he was at one time the U.S. women's rugby team coach. And he was an interesting guy. He was like from France, and France just takes a different attitude towards team sport. So he's like, there's two kinds of sports. There's constrained sports, like powerlifting is one, where you know exactly, what you're going to do, the setting and what your motions are, and that's like you and the structure. And then there's unconstrained sports. And part of what you have to do in training is learn to deal with chaos. So he
sure.
would have these drills where he'd set up a grid system and put like small teams in each grid, and or two teams, opposing teams in each grid, and do things like throw the ball up in the grid and not give you any instructions on what the point of the exercise was.
Oh my gosh.
So everybody's instinct is to gain possession. And then what? Are you supposed to go in some direction or another? Nobody knows. He's like, well, if you do that with women, it's really different than if you do that with men. So
Interesting.
if you do that with men, the guy that gets the ball, puts his head down, and starts running in some direction. If you do that with women, the woman that catches the ball looks around at her teammates and it doesn't do anything until, somebody like engages or something.
Hmm. Interesting.
Hmm. That
Yes.
is
So men and women approach team sports differently.
yeah,
I want to
yeah,
be the star. I want to be the one that makes progress.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like when you can find that good blend, the balance of both of those aspects, right? Because you want to be able to do well on your own, but you also have to look towards your teammates in order to help you be the best athlete that you can be. And I think that even like we kind of touched on earlier, that goes to individual sports as well, right? Like as a powerlifter, if you don't trust your coach, you're probably not going to listen to them very often. But whereas when you have trust in your coach, you can develop that communication, the feedback, the give and take, and you end up both growing, right? Like you grow as an athlete, the coach grows as a coach. He or she learns your training methodology and what works best for your body because of that input, right? When we have an athlete who doesn't necessarily give us any feedback or input or send videos in, it's very hard to progress that program efficiently.
Right.
Um, and you know
I
what?
remember as a rugby coach creating drills in which you get, for women players, in which you get penalized if you got within a certain distance of the goal line, but did not try to score.
Hmm,
So it's like a penalty back 5 yards if you did not try to get the ball in and touch it down.
sure.
Or if you made a pass that close to the goal line, no, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah. Finish it.
Beep,
Yeah.
stop, get out of there.
Love it. So yeah, so you had a lot of coaching experience with rugby, and then you kind of parlayed that into what you're doing now with coaching students to get into high level universities. You want to talk about maybe some similarities there? Do you want to talk about, I'm going to kind of give you the free reins there.
So you say, go ahead with your rant.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I think we're confused about what the point of a university is. So one way it can be used is as a credential, right? So you got your Princeton degree, you tell everybody for the whole rest of your life that you have, well, when I went to Princeton,
Yeah,
um, and you parlay that into increasing success.
sure.
Um, yeah, that's the way parents hope it works. A lot of parents take it as a score on their parenting, how their kids did in college admissions.
Okay.
Um, but you laid it out in the forward or the questions like, you thought it was a grind. So my perception is every kid wants to learn. And you talk to parents and they're like, no, no, you have to push them. You have to push them. Otherwise, they don't do their homework. And when I work with kids, everybody wants to learn something. And the question is, you guys tell me, I'm not going to be here in 40 years. You're going to be running the world. What's it
Yes.
going to be like? What are you going to do?
Yes.
So when they have some idea, then the next question is, so how are you going to fit into that? What's your place? How are you going to make that happen or benefit in that world? How are you going
Sure.
to live in that world? And so then we start talking about what they want to know and what skills they want to have. And so I'm like, you're going to go to college and you're going to find the opportunity to get those skills, even if they're not teaching you the right skills right now, even if they don't have any vision. Okay, you got the vision of where you're going. I'm like, you don't even have to go to college. All this stuff is available for free on the internet. If you know what you want to learn, just
Yeah. Yep.
be Bill Gates, be Steve Jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Learn what you want to learn and then create the future. And then parents are horrified. I'm like, the only thing that makes paying all that tuition worthwhile is there's one thing you can do in college that you can't do just by going out and learning how to live your life. And that is you can go talk to experts, world-renowned experts in whatever field you're interested in. And they have to talk to you, even though you're
Yeah.
17, because that's their job.
Yeah.
So you are going to take that opportunity to every week go talk to somebody you would not otherwise have access to and learn to have a conversation with them, learn to be an intellectual adult.
I love that.
Um, so I really hammer that home on the kids. I make them go talk to their teachers in high school. So the other thing you learn to do in college, which you start learning to do in high school, is society is full of institutions, right? And don't get in the habit of starting to fight institutions. There you go. That's going to use up your whole life and not be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to control your high school institution to support you in your goals. I told one kid, Calvin. Calvin's one of my favorite students of the year. So Calvin, your job is to get everybody at your high school, all the adults, to be on Team Calvin. You're going to be successful. You know the things you want to do. You got to convince all these people that they made it happen for you.
Okay.
Okay, so that when you're successful, everybody's going to be like, oh, I helped a teenager become this, great successful mathematician. So that's what
Sure.
he is. Um, yeah, so he went off and won a gold medal at the International Math Olympiad.
That's great.
So that was his plan since freshman year. He was in a class of mine called How to Succeed in High School. And he's like, I want to do math. Okay, so we got to build this up. We got to build it up as a series of steps. And every step is going to make the next step more possible.
Sure.
So we're gonna start with some things that are like math Olympiads, and then we're going to get to know everybody in the field. And he was already organically, naturally doing this. So he had this story from the pandemic when they were all sitting at home alone, and his dad died of COVID. His dad's a civil engineer and was working on a project in Africa and died of COVID in Africa. And he and his mom are living here in the US, immigrating. And his mom gets a call, and then his mom's all freaked out and crying, tells him, well, your dad died. And then it's like, and she's like, I don't know how we're going to make it. And so she has like a part-time job, and she has to take another part-time job, and then she has to take another part-time job, and like he's left on his own like all the time. So he goes to school, gets home from school, and he gets online, and there's websites where they pose math problems, and you get all involved in your math problem, and you solve it, and you're all happy. And you go back online, and there's a discussion board where the different young mathematicians that worked on this problem discuss the aspects of the problem. So did you use this theorem? No, there's another shortcut. If you like look at it geometrically and just rotate it, then this whole dimension becomes zeroed out. So, and then that just falls away. It's not a five-dimensional problem, now it's a four-dimensional problem. And they talk about all this stuff, all the ins and outs of this, and then you make friends online. So that year, he'd been sitting home all year, and somehow he does this online community, and he does also any other competitions he can sign up for. He qualifies for the national level math counts, which is a math competition, which you go do in person. So he says he goes to this competition, and you have name tags, and he starts recognizing people's name tags as people he knows online. He like knows everybody there already.
Oh.
And so he wins the competition. And so he's driving home in the car with his mom. He says he just starts crying and crying. He's like, I don't even know why I was crying. If I was happy I won, or if I was sad that I was leaving all my friends back at the hotel, then that I'd never see him again. Aw. So he was already doing the right stuff. He's already reaching out and making it happen for himself.
That networking. Yeah.
Yeah. You meet the
Which
people that can tell you which direction to keep going in.
Yeah, well, and it gives you sometimes it gives you just that slightly different perspective, kind of like you were talking about with the math problems. I feel like that's applicable in every area of life, where sometimes we're just banging our head against the wall, looking at this problem, and all you need is a slight shift in perspective for you to be able to see the solution. And then at that point it's like, oh, duh, like so, but one thing we like to say is focus on the solution. Don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution, right? Because when we just sit there and lament about the problem that we're experiencing, we're not putting any brain power towards actually solving it. So it's just, again, it's just sometimes a slight shift in perspective
We'll
that
step back. Yeah.
yeah.
So so a kid that's like really able in math oftentimes is suspect to the school administration, who immediately thinks, oh, your parents have been pushing you too hard. That was like the other thing you're on the edge of alluding to with the college admissions being competitive. Oh, are their parents just pushing them? Are they really interested in all this stuff? Well, kids are interested in stuff. So it's very likely that all their interests are genuine.
Yeah. Well, when you're growing up, you want that newness. You do, like you said, you want to learn new things.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, kids just don't like sitting in one place for 8 hours at a time, especially young boys. They like going out and doing stuff. So,
So probably each year we have at least one student who's like really very ground down. We had a kid this year who, was doing really well at swimming. Freshman year, he thought he was like getting a college swimming scholarship to college. And then he had a tough time with his swimming, and then he's like just hoping to make the regional meet, right? And then the beginning of the next swim season, it dawns on him that he's just not going to be the right caliber for college swimming. And he gets depressed. He has this like existential crisis. And then his training and his swimming goes down, 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 and he's like really having a tough time. We had to ask him, like, from his writing, we're like, were you suicidal? And he's like, well, yeah. And so like the whole rest of the time we're working with him, we're like, oh, let's like, come on, let's just like get him on board to join in on life.
yeah. Your body follows your brain, and if you tell yourself, I think I can, I know I can, then chances are you're going to do it. And I tell that to
It
people.
tells you that you have no choice, that you've already failed and disappointed everybody.
Then there's no point in even trying. Exactly. And I tell people that when they're stepping on the platform, right? Is like, if you have to know that you're going to do this way, there can't be any question about it. It can't be like, well, I'll try. You have to know that you're capable of doing this. And you know what? You might not do it today, but you have to know that you're capable of doing it before your body's ever going to allow you to actually perform it successfully. And I feel like that's a big issue with people is, man, they're just not confident in their own capabilities, and wherever that comes from. Yeah, it's a very interesting conundrum that people fall into, of like telling themselves I can't, or I'm not good enough, or that it must be nice to be able to do that or something. So that's interesting. Which actually, that was one of our questions: is do you see parallels between preparing these kids for elite level colleges and preparing yourself for an elite level performance on the platform?
Well, I already said I made a plan to be able to get into powerlifting if it caught on with me, to just go and then to go and do without expectation, and then to go and, push myself a little bit, and then, leave it open to bringing my best at some point in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, the same thing that you coach your kids, right? Is just to find out what is important to them, what they want to learn, and then try it out. And then if you like it, continue to cultivate that. So yeah, and I feel like that's the same as what happened with you in rugby, right? You saw it, you started playing around with it, you liked it, and then you just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you can really, one of our last podcasts was talking about outcome goals versus process goals, right? And when you can fall in love with the process and you're able to do the things that you need to do on a daily basis without focusing on, I'm not there yet, right? Because no one's there yet. So when you can focus on just doing the processes and perfecting them and having fun with it, generally speaking, you're going to do a lot better than the people who don't enjoy the actual process of getting to where they need to go.
Right. So I think Americans have a number of sort of cultural myths that dovetail with that really hold us back. So we
Sure.
believe that you have to be passionate about something to really throw yourself into it. And so I was talking to my brother and sister-in-law about lifting, and they're like, my sister-in-law is like, "Oh, you really found something you're passionate about." And it's like, "Yeah, I like it. It's okay." I don't like to get thrown into that, because then, it's the only thing you can do, right? It's your
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah. Well, I also think that kind of goes hand in hand with like motivation versus discipline, right? That passion is only going to last as long as you're excited about it. And then as soon as you
Right.
fail,
So you have a day where you're not feeling passionate, and you're like, I could still follow this program.
exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing about like checking off your process goals, like I know that I need to do this, so this is what I'm going to do. So yeah, that's interesting. That you made that.
And so one of the other things that really holds us back is we love this fantasy of genius.
What do you mean by that?
You hear like Olympic athletes get, interviewed. And it's like they love the story of somebody like started skiing when they were 3.
Yeah.
Like, how could a 3-year-old do that? I'm sure the 3-year-old's like, scared when daddy says, do a slide just right down that slope. So it's not like that comes innately. You fall when you're 3 or when you're 20. First time I learned to ski, I had a boyfriend said, let's take this lift up to the top of the mountain and just follow me down.
Oh, okay.
And I like probably fell and nearly fell off the trail into the woods every time he made a turn.
Sure.
And by the end of the day, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. And the next morning, I still felt like I'd been run over by a truck. And I was like, that was great. I want to buy my own skis.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, so the myth of genius, and right, so the myth of genius kind of negates hard work as a virtue. You should meet these Asian families who are oftentimes not so keen on the outcome of something, but put their kids into something they know is going to be really hard for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they like fail. So like there's all these Saturday Chinese schools around here, and they'll sign them up to teach the teaching English to Chinese grandparents class. So they go in there, they have no class materials, they try to teach some English, they realize that nobody's getting any traction, they're horribly embarrassed, and mom shows up and is like, how'd it go? Oh, it was horrible. And mom's like, oh, well, what are you going to do next week that'll make it a little bit better?
There you go.
And next week, they're like, bring them to the door of the classroom. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And they just like cultivate this, like, facing challenges, getting a little bit better, getting a little bit better, trying to draw out articulation of what are you going to do to make that just a little bit better experience.
Exactly.
And so all the white American parents think that Chinese moms abuse their kids.
Yeah. It sounds to me like they help them to focus on the solution and not the problem, right? If
Right.
you
They
come
teach them,
home,
they teach them hard work as an independent skill.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Or
And
problem
you
solving is
can
an independent skill.
Yeah, and you can be successful in anything that you want to be successful in. If you don't want to be successful in it and you just want to complain about how hard it was, you're right, you're probably not going to find success. But yeah, like as long as you work hard at it and you stay focused on, like you said, what can I do next time to make this just a little bit better, then you're going to get a little bit better every single time. And eventually it's going to look way, way better and it's going to be easier for you.
Right.
So
So I see how that plays out for the kids and their level of engagement with their environment. And I think the way parents are a little like, that's not fair. That's cheating. You're like gaming the system. And I'm like, well, they may be gaming the system, but their kid's going to eat your kid's lunch, you know, not even close to keeping up.
yeah, exactly.
Because you're still trying to find the thing that your kid is passionate about.
Yeah, instead of just teaching them to work hard so that when they find what they're passionate about, they already have the quality of hard work and good work ethic to be able to bring them success in that. Because otherwise, they're going to find out what they're passionate about and then they're going to come up against that first problem and then they're going to quit. And then the rest of their life is going to suck too. So yeah, I think that's a really important attribute. So I think a
Well,
lot of
I
it
get to
is,
see all these cultural stereotypes from the inside.
yeah, yeah. But, like you said, I think that that gives you a better perspective on it, right? Because when you only look at it from the outside and I guess I could see, I don't know, I grew up very similar to that, where like work ethic was valued over um, pretty much anything else. I mean, if you can work hard at something, then you're going to find success. And if you can work hard at something that you don't want to do, then you're definitely going to find success because when you find something you want to do, then you're going to be able to work even harder at it.
I'm always like, why do you think they call it work? Why do they pay
Yeah.
you? Because it's
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
not
nobody else wants to do it. I know you don't want to do it, but nobody else wants to do it. That's why you're getting paid.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so I think we touched on the vast majority of the questions that we had lined up for you. I think one last one that we'd like to ask is how has being a woman in sports in general, right? Because now you're in strength sports, but you've played a lot of different sports throughout your life. Like you said before, Title IX. Afterwards, you played on national level teams. You have world records. How has being a woman in sports changed across your lifetime, and what hasn't changed about it?
Um,
The can of worms.
well, when I was young, you go out in the neighborhood and you play sports, and the boys are playing sports. So you play sports with boys. And like
Which,
any other setting, you try to be a valuable contributor to the team so people don't start making fun of you and trying to make you go away.
yeah, yeah.
And so it still works to go to competitions, and there's all the older boys.
You just want to keep up. You want to outperform them. That's the goal.
I can dream, but they really, really like talking to me because they like having women around. Boys like girls.
Yeah.
Boys
And
like
then,
girls that like boys.
yeah, that's age old.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that
So,
doesn't change.
and you said I can dream, but I'll tell you what, Nancy, I talk to a lot of guys in the gym from my age up to your age and beyond who cannot lift the numbers that you can lift, right? And it's all about perseverance, it's about mentality, it's about perspective, and it's about saying I can do this instead of saying I'm too old for that. You know what I mean? And I feel
So
like,
really, what is your view of being in your mid 60s? I mean, what do you think it's like hard to get out of bed in the morning?
well, our view is
So
not
what do
that.
you see? What do you imagine for yourself? I suppose you imagine for yourself something much sunnier than what you think you're seeing around you.
Is that a is
That's
that
the
a
norm.
is that a personal question for Chris and I, or is that a rhetorical
Yes. What
question?
do you
Okay.
see people in their 60s doing? What is life like?
So it seems like in today's society, what you're told is that, like I said, you have to slow down. Your body's going to degrade. You're going to lose muscle mass. You're going to go through sarcopenia, osteopenia. Your bones are going to be fragile. You can't do the same things that you could do when you were younger. And I feel like through strength training, you can maintain control over that, right? And what I tell people is some people tell me, well, I can't squat or I don't want to do squats or something. And I say, well, do you want to be able to get up off the toilet, right? And like that's just the very basic level of how training can help people, I guess, age gracefully, I guess you can say. But like I said before, I think the human body is amazingly adaptive, and whatever you tell it it can do, or whatever you tell it it can't do, it listens to you. It listens to the brain, and it follows that thought process. Um, so I see you as kind of the embodiment of my theory, because obviously I'm not in my mid 60s yet. But I know that if I continue the way I'm going, we have control over how we are going to progress in our life.
So do you think me teaching kids that they don't have to listen to what people are telling them, that they can learn what they want, that they don't have to ask permission? Do you think that carries over to myself?
Yes, exactly.
Great.
Yes. And kind of like you said about your 50th birthday party, where you couldn't find any friends who wanted to do the same thing as you. And like I see that a lot. I see people much younger than you who are much less resilient physically, and they complain a lot and they say, well, it sucks getting old. Just wait until you're 30, just wait until you're 40, just wait until you're 50. And, they say all these markers, but really, I think it boils down to mentality and perspective. Which I feel like some people, because we're not older, we don't have the experience to be able to tell people that and have them listen to us. They say, well, you don't know yet. Like I've gotten that so much.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way you're right, but my answer to that is generally, well, most of our athletes are masters competitors, whether it's powerlifting or bodybuilding. Most of our athletes are in the masters like competition category, and we see what the body is capable of when you make the decision that I am going to do this. But I think people also want an excuse to, I don't know, be lazy or be weaker or, um,
I think it helps to have an example to see someone doing something that they previously might not think is possible.
mhm.
Whether it's a woman being strong or it's someone in their later years feeling like I haven't like lifted, I could never strength train like that.
Okay, so that's a way that I can just feel like I'm part of the team, being that role model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It is a huge, I mean, it's
And
inspiring
then
to,
people are like, "Oh, well, you're just an athlete. I could never do that."
But you're an athlete because you've decided to be an athlete.
yeah.
You've made that decision over and over again in your life to not slow down, to not just take it lying down. And
I'm
so
not sure it's a decision. I think it's one of those more innate things.
And you still have to apply hard work.
yeah, yeah, but it's all like you decided to go and join in rugby during your run, right? You decided to aim for that national level team or the regional level team when you were sitting there after you took that hiatus, right? Like it might feel like innate, but everything that we do on a daily basis is a decision, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Every morning you'd make the decision to get out of bed. Right, you could make the decision to stay in bed all day, but you make but that's not a conscious decision that we make. It's just something that we do, like you said, innately. But it still is a decision for us to do. And I feel like when people are faced with certain choices in their life, they use an excuse. So the questions that we use are not necessarily because Chris and I hold a certain perspective, but I think we are trying to educate people outside of the three of us right now as to what you are capable of. Not you in general, but the you as a general public. What people in general are capable of. Because obviously we're coaches. We know that people are capable of a lot more than they're doing. And we want to try to showcase people who are embodying that, so that other people can see, like, okay, maybe I can do that, instead of just sitting on your hands and saying, well, I'm done, So we want people to know that whatever you want to do in life, you can do it if you make the decision to work hard and persevere.
So I guess I'm thinking more recently about getting older because we had a very close-up experience of decline with age with Mark's sister. his much younger sister. And she was in her mid-50s and then started having trouble with movement and coordination, and then got diagnosed with Parkinsonism. And then we ended up moving her here to, she was like, her ability to function was just kind of falling apart. She was never that on top of things in her life in general. So it's not like she had family that she could rely on. So she came and lived here with us for a little while and then near us. And watching her decline was just disturbing, you know. So what I got out of it is don't get into the maw of the medical establishment. I mean, she may have died of polypharmacy, I don't know, but she had trouble with falling. She got to the point where she was like falling every day at least once. But she was still on like pressure medication. And I saw one of her summary of an appointment visit, and she had a blood pressure of like 90/50. And she's on pressure lowering medications, and she's falling every day. Like, what are
Well,
you people thinking?
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And also for maybe the last year, she lived in an assisted living place. And it really just struck me there how much muscle people have lost, like everybody there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Lee used to be a high school athlete, and I was just like shocked at how much muscle she'd lost. We used to go watch her volleyball games, and she was an amazing server. She just throw it up and pound it over the net again and again and again, like 13 points in a row.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's not like she didn't have innate strength, but then she didn't. She had a daughter, but never got married, and her life was a little bit chaotic. She's, relying on herself. Actually, is relying mostly on Mark's parents to raise her daughter, and not really taking care of herself physically. Not staying an athlete for sure, but yeah. But once she got diagnosed with Parkinsonism, it was just like this steady decline.
Sure. Sure.
I mean, it's just disturbing how it's like assumed, I think, that once you get these diagnoses, they'll just progress.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, not to put my tinfoil hat on, but with that assumption comes the assumption that your only saving grace is in, like you said, pharmacology and pharmaceuticals, and um, not in the power of your own person and your ability to regrow muscle or maintain muscle mass or improve coordination, because all of those things have been shown to be able to be done with the proper diet, nutrition, and training program. Yes, it's difficult. It's a lot more difficult than just waking up and taking a pill and then going about your life. But I do feel like the payoff is much better, and it maintains that power in you as a person instead of releasing that power and relinquishing it to some external force that you're kind of now just like hopefully relying on to keep you healthy or alive or whatever it might be. So yeah, I can definitely understand how that would be like, almost like a wake up call, or like you said, just like a different perspective on aging. Because that is one of the more extreme cases where someone develops like a chronic illness that makes it much more difficult to combat that thing. So we have an athlete who has MS, and she has much different struggles than a lot of our other athletes, regardless of age. She's younger, and it's going to be more difficult for her to gain muscle mass, to improve coordination, to maintain her grip strength. She's going to have different MS flare-ups throughout the year. We have to be much more careful with diet, nutrition, what she eats, with stress levels. But everyone's journey is going to have the differences in the details in the challenges that we have to overcome on a regular basis. And I think it's important just to maintain that power in yourself, that I do have the power to control the outcome. I might not be able to control every single variable, but I can always control how I react to it and how I react to various experiences that I come across in my life. I think that you've done a great job with that. I think that you have continually made the decision. I mean, we have some hip pain, some glute pain recently, and you have made the decision to pull back just a little bit. And when we go into competition, sometimes it's not about setting new PRs, and sometimes it's about going 9 for 9 and leaving pain free and coming pretty close to our previous PRs, right? And then coming into a next training block, aiming to continue to increase those PRs and not just being happy with, getting weaker, right? We still want to continue to progress, but sometimes we have a different challenge that we have to overcome in our training. So yeah, I think that you've been a really, really positive embodiment. I think that you're a tremendous role model for people, of all ages, honestly, because everyone has that mountain that they're climbing that either other people might not know about, or they might have, like, I don't have MS. I'm a guy. I have testosterone. Like I don't have the same challenges that you or Chris might have in their training. So I think it's important to show people that, like, no matter what it is, we can do it. We can progress and we can get better as a human.
You have challenges nonetheless.
Yeah, I have different challenges.
Mhm.
So I made friends with a couple at the gym, and she's like mid 70s and he's late 80s. Started talking to him about, what I was doing and thinking in my own training. And he was like, yeah, I thought when I got to 90, maybe I'd go to a competition. But I looked at what people are doing and I said, nah, I'll put it off.
Put it off another 5 years.
Yeah, but they're there pretty regularly. They look good.
That's funny.
That's great.
Yeah, and I actually think in your write-up, you said, and maybe it was a little tongue-in-cheek, but you said, so at around 85 years old, I'll probably think about what I want my glide path into old age will look like. That's the plan, more or less. And we've discussed that in the past about wanting to continue to progress, and so that you can set all of these world records in each age class as we
Well, I
continue.
think it's something I can contribute, right? It can't be
Yeah.
blind. What's
Yeah.
that about? That's lame.
Yeah, exactly. We got to set the standard. We have to set the bar. So yeah, I've always loved that about your perspective on training and your drive, and also just your positivity. I feel like that's a huge aspect. I talk about the study that they did in, like, the top 25 tennis players in the world, and the main difference was their mentality. Like the top five, they always had a positive outlook on whatever happened in their life. Whatever happened, if they just lost a point, it's still
So did
positive.
you like the 17-year structure?
Say it again.
Did you like the 17-year structure?
Yes, I want you to. Do you want to go over that?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it. Do you want me to go over it, or do you
But
want
I'll
to?
just say what I wrote. I said
Yeah.
from 0 to 17, I was a child, and I turned 17. I started a summer job at a sleepaway summer camp, and I never came back to my childhood home. Not never came back. I came back for visits, but I was launched. And then I had that job and stayed employed every summer and went to college and had all these athletic opportunities and kept doing that through my 30s. Met Mark, and one weekend when I was 30, I said, it seems like it'd be a good time to have children, like right now. He's like, right now? I said, yes, right now. And I think I was like pregnant by Monday.
Oh my
That's great.
gosh.
And so then I was pregnant with David, and actually that was like just weeks before the tryout for the national team. So then I went and made the national team for the second time pregnant. Like 2 weeks pregnant.
Oh man.
Wow.
And so I kind of cut back on rugby playing at that point, duh, and then kept coaching for a while through having a baby. All the kids I was coaching were like, "Oh, let me hold him," So it's fun. He was the life of the party many times.
Yeah, sure.
And so then I also dialed back on my scientific career. I was about to be awarded a big grant to go do a survey around Macquarie Ridge, which is in the Southern Ocean, which it was scientifically really interesting. And it's like just insane to take a scientific ship down there. I knew that. But that's all the reason to do it. That like nobody was else going to do this project. And it was like really important stuff about understanding the Earth. But I like there are other people that were really glad to have my money. So I'm like, call up NSF. I have these other people that want to be a principal investigator. Can you assign this project to them? That was all good. Graceful way out of that. And then kept working on finishing up publications in dribs and drabs for a year. So my collaborator, Dan Orange, was like, I remember the day your water broke and you were working on the derivation for this equation for this paper. I'm like, yep, that was what I did all day, waiting for contractions to start. And then we had David, and our lives became much, much more home focused. And then after, how long did it take me? So I realized by not going to work and just like, taking care of David, I'm like, wow, there's a whole world out there that by going to work every day, I just never see. I'm like not participating in life.
Yeah.
Okay, so me and my child are going to do life now. So I concentrated on that for maybe, well, like 17 years of that. And then, so then he went off to college, but we had Matt in the middle. I kept lobbying for another child. And Mark was like, oh, but David's so interesting. We don't need another child. Here it has Playmate. So finally, he's got to work on another child. Took a while. And then we had Matt, who started out as Eric until he informed us when he was 5 years old. When I turn 6, I'm going to be Matt. At least he didn't say when I turn 6, I'm going to be a girl.
Yeah.
So I guess he was born at the right time. So yes, he changed his name. And a couple years later after that, I asked him, why did you change to Matt? He said, because Matt Livonian is my brand.
I love it.
Yep. So they're both utterly unique and a lot of fun. So one of the reasons I liked being in science is I had really interesting colleagues. And then I had children that were more interesting and smarter than my colleagues. So that was super fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So despite me saying I don't believe in passions, I remember the first time I took David to a science museum, took him to the Exploratorium in San Francisco. And it reminds me of an interview they did on an Olympic athlete. Who was it? Tonya Harding? Anyhow, so her mom was like, yeah, there was an ice rink at the mall. And so she always asking about, can we do that? Can we do that? And so the first time she said yes, they got skates on her. She went out and she immediately like tried to skate and fell down and tried to skate and fell down. And like after hours of this, of like 4 hours, finally, taught herself to skate. It's like, we have to go home and have dinner. She started crying and threw a fit and wouldn't leave. And like, that's how David was first time he was in a science museum. Of course, I was explaining every exhibit to him. And we were there for like 5 hours. And when we had to go, tears, and I want to stay. And how does that one work? And so, yeah. So he's always attracted to science. And so, yes, his company finally sold. And everybody's very happy that he made them rich.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that turned out well. So I was 31 when David was born, but 34 when by the time scientific career kind of dwindled and I got out of coaching and we transitioned over to playing pickup soccer and age group soccer. And we used to have these friends and like get the phone call. We're meeting tonight. We have the field at 6 p.m. So everybody would show up and they'd bring their kids and they'd bring the tricycles and the beach blankets to lay out and the toys to throw on the beach blankets. And the kids will all be playing outside the boards of the indoor soccer field. And all the adults would choose up sides and playing soccer. And we did that kind of once a week for a long time.
Great.
Yes, that was a good life.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get to 30, well, so 17, 34, 51. David goes off to college. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with just Matt here? Maybe I'll start a business. And so Mark's like, you know how when you go to school for a parents thing and all the parents are gathered around you asking him how you got David to do this and that and the other thing? It's like, I didn't make him do anything. We just helped him make it possible. So all the parents were asking me questions and I was like, I could, be a consultant to people who want to know what I've been thinking.
Sure.
So I thought that through and figured out how to put together a business doing that. And so I've been doing that I started that in like 2010, been 16 years, almost 17 years. I'm thinking about phasing that out. I have the best employee I've had in that full time. I asked him, do you want to take over the business? And he's like, yeah, I can't do it the way you're doing it, but I could do it this other way. And how about I give you a quarter off the top for all the clients that are basically your clients that you bring to me? And we could do that. He says we can do that indefinitely. I'm like, okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
So that's going to be the next chapter.
That's the next chapter.
We focus on the powerlifting career.
Yes. So it's back to being an athlete.
Yeah.
Being an athlete, and instead of running this business, it's going to be being a grandparent. And they tell me those grandkids are on the way.
Excellent.
Oh.
Yeah. It's got 17 embryos and they all got genetically tested. And number 7 looks very promising. So number 7 has the lowest probability of all these different developmental problems and lowest probability of all these diseases and 90% chance of having an IQ over 150. And I've already started calling her the princess.
Yeah. Yeah.
When are we going to implant the princess?
That's funny. Well, that's really exciting.
It is exciting. So then I got to think about the next part of the plan. I don't know much about that. So I get to be 85 and so you can, you got something to do in each age group. 85 mostly are pretty empty or minimal performance. So hopefully I'll still be doing something respectable by then.
Yeah.
Because by then I'm going to have great posture. You're finally going to have an influence on me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be a little bit weaker, but I'm going to have great posture. I'm going to be so efficient. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
You're telling stories about me like I tell stories about the kid that went directly into a PhD program from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think that, having, I've kind of said this kind of tongue in cheek in the past, but, fail to plan to fail. And it sounds like, I like your plan. I really like it. And it feels to me like having your priorities in line, kind of helps to keep, which is another thing that we talked about in the past, is like having your values and having your top 3 values, and then making sure that the way that you set up your life, on a daily basis aligns with those 3 values and makes decision making on a daily basis much easier. Because you know that if going to the gym achieves one of your top 3 values, then that's what you need to do on a daily basis. So it's interesting to see how your values have like maybe shifted, but also stayed very, very similar throughout your entire life. Obviously we have other variables in there like family, but like through your college career, your family focus was finding Mark and getting married and starting a family. And then your family focus was raising your kids. And then your family focus will be helping with spoiling your grandkids, because there's that saying, right? Either you raise your kids and you can spoil your grandkids, or if you spoil your kids, then you have to raise your grandkids.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So I think you've set yourself up to be in a really good place to be able to spoil your grandkids, the princess. And we're definitely excited to continue to see your progression. I think really big things are really I think they're coming down the pike, right? Like you said, maybe be a little weaker when you're 85. I don't know. Right now, you're just getting stronger and stronger, and it might not feel like that on a daily basis because we have some different focal points in your training. We might have some different accessory lifts in there. We might have some different volume counts in there. But yeah, I'm still expecting more PRs from you. I know that it's coming. I see how your training is progressing. I see the tenacity with which you approach your training and your training program. So yeah, I think we're both very, very excited for the future of the athlete Nancy Breen. And having said that, would you like to, is there anything else that you would like to say as maybe like a closing statement to some people out there who are watching or listening to this podcast? What would you like for them to take away from the Nancy Breen story?
Well, what they should take away is if they've ever thought about lifted or lifting competitively, they should give it a shot. Come play with us.
Yeah, I love it. And I love how you said that. Come play with us because it's at the end of the day, we want you to enjoy the process. We want you to enjoy the competitive process, and lowering the stress will help you to perform better anyway. So, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, Nancy, we really appreciate your time with us.
So fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, TC, you just turned 35. So, what are you going to do for your third stage?
Oh man, I want to get back into being a competitive athlete because man, over the past 3 or 4 years, I've been focusing on trying to grow 100% raw. We kind of shifted gears from there. Our next step looks like it might be at a gym, helping to build a training program, but really, Chris and I want to double down as coaches and athletes ourselves. We want to maintain family as one of our highest values. Um, and I do see a lot of like discontent and strife, especially not just in my family, but out there as well. And I think that my personal goal is to try to be a role model as to what life could be like, similar to how you've lived your life. I want people to know that it's possible. Um, I want to show people how strong they are by being strong myself through various things. And in some of your responses to the questions that you wrote out, you kind of touched on the fact that the college, I want to kind of read it. One of the questions that we formulated was talking about the academic achievement. You said academic achievement as being stressful, but it shouldn't necessarily be, right? Or it's not because maybe there's more other stressful
Shouldn't
things.
be because everybody wants to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that having that perspective in life in general, instead of telling yourself this is hard, maybe say look for something that's exciting or look for something that's beneficial or positive or fun, because in anything that you do, there's going to be that. Yeah, there's going to be some hard stuff, but that's how we grow. And I think that helping for people to look at things that might be hard or difficult or challenging as positive and not negative, I think is much more beneficial, right? When we try to stay happy and content 24/7, you're probably going to end up unhappy.
The question is, why do our societal institutions take something that should be so organic and joyful and turn it into something grinding?
Oh man, I got to get my tinfoil hat on for that. The answer to
Right.
that. So yeah, I don't know
And
if
none of us can answer because those institutions are changing, shifting right under our feet.
yeah, yeah. So I think that
Pretty soon a computer will be able to lift better than we can.
yeah. I think that, just maintaining the focus on controlling your reaction to certain situations, I think is really important. And not necessarily listening to what society or institutions say should be hard or should be difficult or what you have to do with your life. I think just like you said, maintaining the focus on what do you enjoy? What do you want to do? How do you want to affect the world? And if you want to see the world a certain way, how can what is it, Mother Teresa, be the light that you wish to see in the world? I think that that's a really important takeaway. If you want
One
something,
thing I see that well, manufacturing got really efficient, right? And now you can go down to Walmart and get something for China for like you can get like a bucket for like a buck 69. And like I understand how they manufactured it for almost nothing, but how do you get it halfway across the world for less than I spend getting in my car and driving down to Walmart and coming home? That I don't get. So
Yeah.
things have gotten so cheap. And of course, information's gotten cheap and any information processes have gotten cheap. And the only thing that has not been replaced by these technologies is actually relationships between people.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you can create a gym where people come to be with the other people in the gym, that would be so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to that community, that camaraderie, and the various perspectives that people need to be exposed to in order to be able to make the most out of their own lives. You know, if you're just doing it alone, I mean, that's why it took cavemen so long to, evolve from cavemen, right? Is because they were very, very isolated and they all lived their life. They had kids and they grew up and they stayed in that cave. And once we have that community and we can share ideas and we can shift perspectives and have those communications, have those conversations about, how can we make this better, then, that's when we can really start to
So
be.
have you thought about that? What a physically healthy community looks like? And
Um,
how people talk to each other and support each other to perpetuate it?
I think that the answer to that question is kind of multifaceted. I think that there's different communities for different types, and there's different types of people who prefer different types of community. And I come from my mom, myself, my brother. We're a little more antisocial. Not that we don't like people, but it's just we don't necessarily seek out that community. And I think oftentimes it's to our detriment, right? Chris has definitely helped me a lot with that, with um, exploring other people and communities and perspectives and opportunities.
So we could
So,
let Chris talk. Do you have
sure.
a vision for how a community within a gym should be beneficial to people?
Um, I don't know that I put a ton of thought into that, so that's a great question. I do know that from like a coach's perspective, I do feel like a lot of people are looking for support in fitness because they're not always getting it like at home. Like maybe they really want to like embark on taking care of themselves or living a healthy lifestyle, but maybe at home, a spouse is just really comfortable in a different type of lifestyle. So I think having, we try to create an online presence, but I think an in-person, it has a more direct effect. But just like linking people together, like I'm trying to like a woman that's trying to like lose some weight after having a kid and trying to balance like a healthy lifestyle plus like taking care of a new kid with another woman that has like three and has gone through the process before. So I think like I think for women especially, there's a lot of connection that can be built because they're looking for that directly.
Especially once you have kids.
Yes, yes. I
So
think
we've both been through the trenches of, going through all those different ages.
yeah, I think moms really seek it out too. And I think women, especially, we have like different phases of life where we experience different things that might be a little bit different than a male. And it can be like, I don't know, it can be daunting. Like we have a lot of masters competitors that they'll say things to me like in my 30s this, but in my 50s no. But if there's other like relatable people, there's also a sharing of information of what has helped and what's worked for people, and there's the like emotional support of like, yeah, this is hard, but
You can do it.
you can do this,
Yeah.
or this has helped me, or like this is something we can try together. So I see it more for like the female community, but
Well, I think that's what I was saying about like different people need different communities, right? I used to go to this, it was a gym called Soldier Fit. We did like boot camp style classes where it was circuit training. There wasn't a lot of talking involved, But going through certain trials together brings you closer together with people. And I think that that's kind of that's the community that guys look for, is like doing hard things together and then bonding over doing those hard things together. Whereas, in the glute lab, you guys warm up for like an hour before they
talk.
warm up. Yeah, for like
Okay,
an hour.
sit down and stretch, and next thing you know, the afternoon is gone.
Exactly, which is perfectly fine, right? Because it's the same thing. It's you're doing something similar with someone who's similar to you, and now it's like I'm not doing this alone, and that kind of gives you that motivation to be able to push harder, to push more, to push through those hard things, which I think is really important. If you're just by yourself and doing things that are very difficult, sometimes it's tough because sometimes you don't know, am I going to come out the other side of this? But as soon as you talk to someone who's done it before and they show you, you can do this. I know that you can do this. Sometimes all it takes is that one person to believe in you, right? And if it's someone especially if it's someone who's alongside you, who's doing it with you and saying, yes, you can do this, then I think
Sometimes the structure of it just carries you along.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
used to belong to a gym that had like a whole powerlifting section on one side and then a bunch of machines and free weights on the other. And there's like a posing room. So it's like both for powerlifting and bodybuilding. So it's great for us because when we first met, we were in different sports.
Right.
And I remember looking at the powerlifting like side, and it's like this strange conglomeration of like lifters that bring in carpets and like they bring in their own rugs to put on their
So
deadlift.
now you're getting me on a tangent, brainstorming, thinking about like creating all sorts of communities, like the powerlifting part, and there's costumes people can wear.
Yeah. And they would have like a bunch of food and like they would just all be like hanging out and laughing and having a great time. And it was like
Yeah.
they're having a party every time they went to the gym. So it's
And all the bodybuilders are dieted with their headphones on and grumpy walking around.
The posing, you're like,
Yeah.
you look great. You said that's all you say. You look great.
Which is nice to hear sometimes, when you're working your butt off and you feel like maybe, as an athlete, you see all the negatives. So you're like, oh, I want this line. And then as soon as someone gives you a compliment, like sometimes it can be, remotivating and say, okay, I am on the right track. Things doing well. I'm doing the right thing. So yeah, I think community is very important for sure in training. And when I first got into powerlifting, I didn't have an in-person community, but I saw a bunch of the high-level powerlifters on social media, on Instagram, and I said, I know I can do that. I know I'm stronger than that. I wasn't at the time. There's no way that I was as strong as
So social media clips really spoke to you.
Yeah. And it gave me something to aspire towards. I said, well, if they can do it, I know I can do it, and within 2 years, I was
Who
in.
do you think you guys are reaching right now on your media?
Sorry?
Who are you reaching right now on your media? Who are you drawing into the sport?
I think we're trying to hit different because our team is lots of variables. We got powerlifters, we have people that are just trying to develop healthy lifestyle, and then we have bodybuilding athletes as well. So we have I think that's a unique part of reckless training is it's just like a mixture. So we try to appeal to like different groups.
Yeah. Well, we coach very comprehensively, right? We say like bodybuilding complements powerlifting and powerlifting complements bodybuilding. And when you have more of a comprehensive approach to your training program, I think that you can make a lot more progress, right? Where like bodybuilders do exceptionally well at isolating and developing certain body parts, right? I think powerlifters do really well at honing in on making micro improvements on these compound lifts because once you get past newbie gains, man, sometimes you don't see a PR for weeks or months. And then all of a sudden you get 5-pound PR and now you're excited about it again. So if you can kind of develop a program that uses both of these aspects, right? So we can go into a growing season, or sometimes it's called an off season, where we use a lot more accessory lifts, some higher volume. This is for a power lifter, right? And then we taper for a powerlifting meet. You do the exact opposite for a bodybuilder, right? When a bodybuilder is starting to reverse out from a show and they're seeing all those lines start to disappear, they can get really, really demotivated unless you give them a different metric of progress, right? So now when you're starting to refeed, now we're getting super strong. You were just feeling super weak, a few weeks ago, and now you're pumping the carbs, you're pumping the calories, And now we can start hitting these compound lifts a little bit heavier. So now we can give them like powerlifting or strong lifting, which has more, has 6 compound lifts. We can give them that as something to reach towards so that their growing season is not now, I'm just a
And
fat.
when you build the Ninja Warrior course,
That's
Yeah.
coming. I was actually going to talk to Ken at Iron Built about maybe putting like a rock climbing wall in or something because he just expanded into a new space. So, yeah, the sky's the limit, and I mean, obviously the more focused you are in your approach, the higher you can go in that one thing. But, I think that just having a nice balanced approach can really just keep you happy and progressing for a longer period of time.
There's complementary aspects to a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So our goal is to attract all kinds of people, all kinds of athletes, and to show them that whatever you want to do, you can do it. And all it requires is just continuing to show up. It's progress over perfection. And I think that, that can be not that, but perfection, that idea that you have to do it perfectly can be a big turnoff to people too, so when you just focus on progressing, like you said, what are you going to do next week to make it a little bit better? It's the same thing with training. Where are we?
you would have made a great Chinese mom.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, but that's why we tell people to record their lifts, right? Because now you can send those videos in, you can get feedback. But then once you start getting that feedback from us, you can start seeing on your own how we can start to try to make positive changes. And then immediately after recording it, we can watch that video back ourselves. And then we can try to implement a couple changes on your very next set. So then that progress starts to happen a lot faster.
So this is all very progress oriented. Have you thought about training people to enjoy the moment more intensely?
It's an interesting question.
On like a competition day or an every day?
For people who don't want to compete, that's what you're asking?
Maybe.
So
You're coming with your friend's competing. Why don't you come and do this? It's going to feel great.
I think that works for a short term, but as soon as you're not excited about it anymore, it can get boring. I've seen people who come into the gym day after day, and then they complain about not making any progress. They complain about various aches and pains. And when you're not looking for some sort of progress, it's kind of like business, right? Where if you're not growing, you're failing or you're dying, right? That's what they say about businesses. And I think it's very similar in the training world where it doesn't have to be more weight on the bar. It doesn't have to be more volume. It doesn't have to be more sweating. It doesn't have to be a more intense workout session. Sometimes it's increased mobility. Sometimes it's feeling better. Sometimes it's leaving the gym without having your low back being sore. You know what I mean? But looking for some
In the
sort of
middle of that, you reminded me of a book by Peter Thiel called 0 to 1. And he said, don't start a business that somebody else is already doing. You're just stepping into competition where they have more experience than you. You
Yeah,
want to go, the thing that's not being done doesn't exist in the world to one, creating that thing. And then you're not
sure,
competing with anybody.
sure,
Hmm.
sure. Yeah, and you know what? It's very interesting that you said that because I feel like that's kind of what reckless training does, right? Because a lot of coaching companies think that they need to be wholly centered on powerlifting or bodybuilding, and you have to identify as a powerlifting coach or a bodybuilding prep coach or whatever it might be. But like I said, our mentality is that it all complements each other, and whatever you want to do, like the basis is very, very
So I
simple.
just flashed on your short of carrying the machine out of the gym.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Why? Why is that?
Um, because you said being different than everybody else, not having a niche.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking that fits in with the street signs in the background, the last long form video you guys that you did.
Oh, mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's about having fun with it. Like you said, yes, it's about enjoying the moment. And I feel like people have more fun when they see progression, right? When you're not progressing, and I think it can become very dull and boring, and then eventually you get fed up and it's like, oh well, I'm just gonna skip the gym today. And then all of a sudden it's been a week since you've been in the gym, it's been a month, it's been a year. And so like keeping things new and exciting, I think is
Yeah, you want people to be like, oh man, what did I miss while I was gone?
yeah, yeah.
Missing out.
And it's about enjoying the process too, right? Those process goals over the outcome goals. Like if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to do as well. So yeah, I think enjoying what you're doing is a huge aspect to making progress, right? So yeah, I think that enjoying life is very beneficial, right? Seeing challenges as enjoyable instead of detrimental, I think is beneficial. So I think it all goes hand in hand. And now I haven't like we haven't been a huge proponent on um like enjoyment as the sole aspect of training because I do think that you need to keep an eye on progressing and pushing yourself, right? We have to push ourselves out of that comfort zone if we want to grow at all. Um but I think it is a balance. You can't get caught up in only looking for progress because then when you don't see progress, you're going to get demotivated. And then you have to spend some time dialing it back, finding that enjoyment again, and then we can push again for another chapter. So yeah, I think there's chapters for everything. Like you said about, your 17-year chapters. I don't think my life is as cleanly broken up into those
That was a
like
little bit of a retrospective rather than a plan.
yeah, yeah, and but I have had different chapters in my life as well, right? I had a high school career, and then I had my college career, which was very different from right post college when I was doing general contracting with my dad. We were just doing construction stuff. Then I worked at Victoria's Secret for a year. Then I worked at a research and development lab for 5 years, where I worked with powdered metals. I developed a cryogenic milling process. I led a team of individuals where we did everything from building and installing welding glove boxes to developing different milling routines for these metal powders that we either wanted to compound or just take the oxide layer off to make them spontaneously combust when they hit oxygen. And then after that, I built a hemp farm, but that was just 1 year. And then I met Chris and I was traveling with her, trying to basically like supporting her in her prep coaching career. And then we started Reckless Training. And then we ran 100% raw, and now we're here and we're moving into the next chapter. And I think being able to see your life as a little bit more of a flexible path, and being able to enjoy each opportunity as it comes instead of thinking that we have ultimate control over absolutely everything in our life. I think that it can be a little bit more enjoyable than when we try to control it, and then when it doesn't happen exactly the way that we were thinking it was going to happen, now we're unhappy about it, rather than saying, okay, well, now I'm right here and I have these 10 different options. And then when one of them solidifies itself, okay, now I have these 10 different options. And I know that I stress Chris out sometimes because I'll just like go off on tangents and I'm like, yeah, we could do this. And then it's this, and then this, and then this. And she's
Has
like,
she asked you to write down your priorities?
yeah. She's had to do that to me a couple of times. Oh, okay, but what about this? Because you were working on this, and
But
I
you
was like,
said,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's been good to like help keep me focused in some aspects. And I think that I hope that I've been a positive influence on her and like keeping an open mind to what life could be. So
It's an adventure.
yes, exactly. Every day is an adventure. So,
so
um,
people are going to love it if you can give them as an adventure as they work out.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because it has to be enjoyable, right? There's all these studies on what the most effective workout routine is, and at the end of the day, the most effective one is the one that you're going to consistently show up for and perform enthusiastically, right? So, I think that's really important to remember, and I think a lot of coaches, especially like big name coaches who have hundreds of athletes and they just prescribe a general program, and we see it a lot in the bodybuilding world where they just program the same thing. As soon as you sign up, they say, okay, this is what you're going to do. And it's like, well, how do you know that that's going to work best for this athlete? And they say, well, that's what you have to do to be successful. And uh, on one hand, I guess I get that, but on the other hand, I guess that's why I don't identify as a bodybuilding prep coach, because I don't believe in that coaching methodology. So, yeah, different strokes for different folks. I guess that's what it boils down to. Well, Nancy, we've really enjoyed having you on our podcast. I
So
think,
did I give you lots to edit?
oh, no, there's that one, we took a bathroom break and we're gonna pop that out of there. But yeah, we like to keep things pretty raw. I don't, I mean, I'm not a news media where we're gonna take what you say and clip it to what we want you to be saying. You know, we want you on a podcast. So I want to have the video that, you know what I mean? That's what we're looking for. So yeah, I think it was great. I think this is going to be really beneficial for a lot of different people. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to us.
So if you meet any masters athlete that wants to go on a bike ride, send them my email.
Yes,
And I'll
we'll
be
do.
like, oh, I finally got a group to ride with.
Yeah.
Definitely. Or even just one who, you know, wants to be active and is adventurous and wants to try a bike ride. And let's do it. You know, maybe you can ease them into it with a, 25 miler or something. So, yeah, that would be great. You have anything else, babe?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Nancy, thank you so much again. Do you have any closing statements? I know that's a ringer because I didn't put that on the list. So it's okay if you don't. We covered a lot of stuff today. Yeah, I think that, like I said, I think this is going to be very beneficial for a lot of people, and we really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with us, share your story, and be so open and honest with your perspective and with who you are as a coach, a mentor, a person, an athlete, a mom, a wife, just all of the above. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy.
My pleasure.